Ego death. Dun dun dun. Ah! Everybody who wants to go down the spiritual path, right? You want enlightenment. You go in, you start to look into things. There's all these takes on it, right? There's all these approaches. There's the religious side, there's the not so religious side, there's all these teachers that talk to you about it. And you go down these forums and you see information from people who are enlightened. And there's a prevailing message. What's the prevailing message? In order to become enlightened, you have to die before you physically die, aka ego death, right? This is really prevalent out there. And people who claim to be enlightened are very proud of claiming that they have died before they died, so that their ego died. Well, guess what? I don't share that. And I'm not claiming to be enlightened. I'm on the path, same as you. But I can see what's happening to me. And I know nothing is dying, okay? This really got to me for a long time initially. And I'll tell you why it got to me. And probably why these people say the ego dies, but it doesn't. It's not going anywhere, okay? Why were they saying it dies? Well, let's not get to that. Let's get to what this whole thing is, right? Fundamentally, it's all about what you identify with. See, if you go into meditation, the simple mindfulness meditation, when you watch your breathing, you're going to see that thoughts come and thoughts go. Emotions come, emotions go. But guess what? They come and go. They're not you. 222. So you identify yourself with them. Identification is the big problem here. We think we are a part of ourselves. That is the ego. So if you know a bit of psychology, or if you've heard about things like child parts and splintered parts of our personality that can happen when we have traumatic events happen in our lives, and not even very traumatic. So it's at some point, if something happens to you that shocks you, inside your mind, a bit of your personality will break off, and it will actually influence you in your decision making and in your reactions throughout your life, unless and until you go back, you revisit those events, and you integrate back those child parts and those wounded parts of you. This is absolutely accepted psychology. And when people go to shrinks, they do that. And you can do it yourself. DIY. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Because it's your body and it's your mind. Of course, in some cases, get support. I'm not against support. It's really good to get support when you need it. But the thing here is, that's how you deal traditionally with these parts of our psyche. Now, guess what? The thing that is perceived in spiritual growth as ego, or not only in spiritual growth, it's defined. It's a part of your personality. It's not you. The problem here is we identify ourselves with it fully. We believe we are our personality. 100%. But we're not. We're looking at our personality. We are feeding our personality. We are not our personality, but we identify fully with it. It's like you would identify with the wounded child in you that was upset or mistreated. And you are always that child. You're always that rebellious 444. You're always not wanting to do things however you were marked in that particular moment in your development. So what happens is, this is similarly to what the ego is. The ego drives the body from a particular point of view. It's part of our psychological development. Now what happens is we as the observer identify ourselves fully with this part of ourselves. The ego is a part of who we are. Now, if you believe fully that you are that part, because you think all those thoughts are you, then you haven't really taken the next step on the spiritual path. Then what happens is, what do you think happens when somebody goes in and tells you, oh, you have to die before you die to enlighten yourself and to grow spiritually. The ego has to die. You get a massive panic attack, don't you? Or you're at least fearful because you think, I have to die, which is what you are told by many. You have to die. No, you don't have to die, not even in your mind. The only thing that happens is the more you evolve on the spiritual path, the more you start to detach from the egoic side of you, which is simply a personality trait. It's a splintered part of you. It's a part of you. The more you detach, the more you realize, I'm not that. I'm not my child part. I'm not my wounded parts. I'm not my safety seeker. I'm not my approval seeker. I am not my personality. That's it. Nothing is dying. Your relationship with the ego changes. That's it. So don't be afraid of going further down the rabbit hole of your own personal growth, your success, the best version of you that you can be. Because there's only good things at the other end of it. The fire of self-discovery will only show you what you are not. And when you step into that fire of self-discovery, at some point you will realize, I am not my personality. It's a part of me. Sometimes I may go with what my personality says, but some other times I may not. Because I realize it's panicked, for instance. But for no good reason. Just because it was programmed so by society or for whatever. It may sound weird to you to listen to this if you've never encountered these concepts. But this is it, my friends. This is it. It's a very simple way of looking at it. And it's the right way to look at it, in my view. And other people's view that are going through this and are looking at this with fresh pair of eyes, not through religious dogma, spiritual dogma, because dogma traps us all. And dogma is living with other people's thinking. Don't live based on what others tell you. Test it. Put it to the test. I'm sharing this stuff with you so you understand this perspective. But you go through the paces. The only reason I'm telling you is I want you to understand that nothing is dying here. There's no reason for fear. There's only reason for joy and happiness. Realizing how great you are. And realizing that you can work with these parts to be a much better, much more elevated version of who you really are, of who you are right now. You improve. One way to look at it, which I found a good analogy from a friend, is like you're in a company and there's the CEO, right? CEO runs the company. There's the COO, yeah? You've got the operations officer. There's the CFO, the chief financial officer, right? Well, you're like the CEO. You're the chief operating entity of who you are. Ego, you could see it as the COO, the chief operations officer. Ego makes sure you've got food on the table. Ego makes sure you've got good relationships with others so that you come up to some sort of social norm. Ego makes sure, but that's not you. Now you think you are that COO. You're not. You're the CEO. You're the guy. You're the top guy. Or gal. We're all inclusive here, yeah? So that's the thing. You command the ego and you command the other parts of you, because there are other parts of you. The more you do this work, the more you realize. This is one way of looking at it. The ego is going nowhere. Nobody's hacking the ego. No. The ego is coming along for the ride, my friends. It's all about integration, integration, integrate. We look at this in a mature way, 10, and then we realize, interesting. This is how it actually works. And it brings so much value to our lives, I promise you. But this is the thing. It's about integrating these parts. And the ego is just one of these parts. Nothing is dying. They're just coming along for the ride. Yeah, the more you detach and you see things for the way they are, you can then use your personality, your ego, and your other parts to go into the direction where you really want to go. And not let yourself be driven by egoic fears that are instilled in you by society, because they are. They're drilled into you deeply, and it's not drilled into you, it's drilled into your personality, your ego. As you step aside, you see things much more clearly. And then you can make informed decisions. 11, there we go. This has been a long one. I could make it much longer, but I don't want to. I didn't want to go this far, but it's important to make this point for people who are on the spiritual path, for people who are trying to improve themselves. If you want to be a better version of you, you need to look at this. This is the elephant in the room, people. You cannot run away from this. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pump some iron, I'm going to read some books. Sadly, or not sadly, fortunately, this is core. And, you can dance around life on the edge of it, like I said before. But until you address the real crux of the matter, who am I? Who am I in this body-mind complex, body-mind-spirit complex that I am? Until you address that and really get the right relationship going, you won't really be the best version of yourself. And you are unlikely to know what you really want in life. So that's what it is. Hopefully, this has put some people's fears aside. In becoming the best version of you, there is no room for fear. There's only room for curiosity, joy, fun, love of life, and of this process that is unfolding before us all. I couldn't put it any other way. Hopefully, this has helped you. And if you're interested about learning how you can take this further after you realize some of this stuff, if you want to know your purpose and your mission in this life, ring me up in the link below, because I can connect to the Akashic Records, the Book of Life, Central Library of the Universe, and they can tell me and you why you're here. If you feel called, I am happy to help you from my heart to yours. Sending you love.